Today, we're going to talk about the passing 4/6 chord. And check this out, a chord progression that only uses 3 voices. It sounds complete, balanced, like there's nothing missing, but there's not even a 4th voice. And it works just as well in reverse. And in minor. You've heard these progressions before, even if you didn't realize it. We heard the minor version in the last video to introduce the Phrygian half cadence. So why does this sound good with only 3 voices? And why is adding a 4th voice so tricky? First, let's understand what we're working with. This video is all about the passing 4/6 chord, which acts as a stepwise connector between a root position 5 chord and a first inversion 5 chord. Normally, 5 chords don't move to 4 chords, but we allow it here because it's a passing chord, allowing the bass to move by step. In 3 voices, we have everything we need. All the chords are either complete or have 2 roots and a third. The bass and middle voices move in parallel thirds. The middle 2 chords, 5/6 and 4/6, are both in first inversion and move in parallel too. That technique of connecting 2 first inversion chords is called Fauxbourdon, and it's worth a closer look. Fauxbourdon, or Fauxbourdon, is one of the earliest harmonization techniques, and the name means false bass. Let's start with a 1-voice melody. The easiest way to harmonize this, almost without thinking, is to add another voice in parallel thirds. If we want to add a 3rd voice, we could add another third on top and make parallel triads. Now we have 3 sets of intervals, the lowest note to the middle note, the lowest to the highest, and the middle to the highest. We have 2 sets of parallel thirds, but the lowest voice to the highest voice form fifths. So now we have a long string of parallel fifths. Musicians of this time avoided parallel fifths at all costs. But if we invert root position chords into first inversion chords, now we have a combination of thirds, sixths, and fourths. None of those are fifths or octaves, so you can harmonize an entire line like this without any fear of objectionable parallels. In this position, the third of the chord is on the bottom, the root is on the top, and the fifth is in the middle. When voiced like this, with the root on top, there aren't any fifths to worry about. Keep that in mind. This technique of moving by stepwise first inversion chords works great when there's only 3 voices. But adding a 4th voice suddenly makes things difficult. It can't move in parallel with the other 3 voices because every option will result in parallel octaves with one of the other voices. That means it has to go in the opposite direction of everybody else, or you have to alter the voicings completely. So let's go back to our original 4-chord progression. Our middle 2 chords are in first inversion. And remember, we have to keep the root on top of these chords. Otherwise, we'll end up with parallel fifths. That sort of locks in our soprano voice. So, how do we make it work in 4 voices? There are a bunch of ways to do this, and they're all kind of fussy, but I'll show you 2 good ways to handle it, and they both involve splitting that middle line between 2 voices. This is the simplest way. Keep the soprano and bass like they were. The alto and tenor kind of trade off the original inner voice, then use some creative doubling for the other notes. Bass and tenor start on a unison, then alto and tenor are on a unison in the 2nd chord, and then the alto and soprano are together in the 3rd chord before finally reaching 4 unique notes on that last chord. Pretty cool, huh? The voices are still super close together, but it works. And it works in reverse. And in minor. But in minor, the direction is going to change the quality of the chords. The descending version has the bass going down the melodic minor scale, resulting in a minor 5/6 chord, a minor 4/6 chord, but ending with a major 5 chord at the Phrygian half cadence. And we can come back from that the same way, but since the bass is going up the melodic minor scale, we have to raise both scale degrees 6 and 7, so both the 4/6 and 5/6 chords will be major, because those notes are the thirds of those chords. Let's hear both progressions back to back to really appreciate that. Okay, now let's try another voicing option, using leaps in a few voices to open up the texture a bit. We'll start with the soprano leaping from 1 up to 5, and then we'll have the alto leap from 5 up to 1. Again, this works in reverse and in minor as well. The first voicing I showed you was more stepwise, which we often prefer, but sometimes adding leaps can add more drama. And leaps between 1 and 5 are particularly easy to execute, so leaps aren't necessarily a worse option than steps. Sometimes they make it more interesting. These are two common solutions to this progression. If you can find another voicing that works, drop it in the comments. This progression's harder than it looks. One false move and you have parallel fifths, doubled leading tones, or awkward leaps. Now, why did I show you such a hard progression? The descending version in minor is fairly common, and you'll come across all the different versions of it. But composers will also use fragments of this progression even more often. You might just see the first 3 chords or the last 3 in either direction. If you can understand how to connect these 4 chords, it'll be even easier with just 3 or just 2. And keep that idea of Fauxbourdon in mind in other progressions as well. You'll see it pop up in other places, and that trick of keeping the root on top is going to come in handy. The 4/6 chord pulls a lot of weight. Here we saw it as a passing chord, but if you haven't already, check out my other videos on it, like the champagne progression and the Phrygian half cadence. And as always, stay tuned for more chord by chord breakdowns from Dr. Fromm's Music Lab.